Welcome to Stephen Paton from AGL Energy, who services most of the bottom right-hand corner of Australia and beyond, who is the client of James Fergusson. Stephen's known for his experience in customer segmentations and expertise in consumer behavior and brand positioning. And he brings lessons from the behavioral sciences into business practices. He's QPMR and has a master's in business. So please welcome Stephen and James.
Okay, so we're going to talk today about a case study that we did with James's company for AGL, and I'm going to introduce to you AGL and the case study. AGL is Australia's largest energy provider. This picture with the old office here with the gas lamps. So AGL was originally set up for people to go around with little lights and light up the gas lamps on Sydney Harbour. But since then we've grown into Australia's largest integrated energy company. We do gas, electricity, and with the old energy industry under a lot of pressure, we're moving into solar. We're building the biggest wind farm in Australia, the biggest solar farm out near BHP's homeland at Broken Hill. And as a company, despite our 177 years of heritage, we are under a lot of pressure because the energy market in Australia is the most competitive energy market in the world. There's new players, there's a lot of government pressure on us to change. A lot of people are interested in the carbon issues and environmental issues. And so the management at AGL are under a lot of pressure, and it's a very high-paced environment. As a research team or an insights team, because we cover not just market research, we look after competitive intelligence, all our partnerships, we're under pressure. And we've dealt to that pressure through changing and looking at the way we approach research, and we interact things like graphical design. We've adopted storytelling. Behavioural economics feeds into a lot of our studies. And what we're going to talk about today is the work we've done in our mobile longitudinal study and mobile in the moment and big data. In addition to this, we do things like co-creation. But despite all that, and despite the changes we've made, the pressure's still on with us to be better, faster, and cheaper. And I'm sure most of you in this room understand those sorts of pressures. And I've been in this game for just over 20 years, and we are better, and we are faster, and we are cheaper. But the pressure never goes away. And what we're going to talk about today is how this mobile study has enabled us to be better, faster, and cheaper. So, clicker.
Thanks. He's got the Madonna headset and I've got the old school mic. I think the first thing I want to say is a point I made earlier, that are we underestimating mobile? Because I reckon in about 10, 20 years' time, mobile and the period we've just been through will be talked about as the mobile revolution and compared directly with the Industrial Revolution in terms of the impact it had on societies and the impact it had on availability of goods and services and the impact it had on consumer decision making and also social interaction. So the other thing is, as an industry, are we investing in the right place? Because just about everyone has either an Android or an iOS survey app. There's a handful of people who are looking at feature phones, and feature phones still make up the majority of mobile devices in the world. And also, it's the feature phone users who are feeling the biggest impact of the mobile revolution. It's having a much bigger impact on their lives than it is on those of us in the developed markets. So, can we afford to disregard the majority of mobile phone users? Device agnostic is bullshit. Why are we treating mobile like just another data collection tool. Mobile, as I said, has revolutionised consumer decision making. It's revolutionising consumer behaviour. Can we really fit traditional market research into mobile? And I think if you listen to what people have said right throughout these 2 days, the answer is an overwhelming no. Surely the very essence of market research has to change to reflect this. Or else, arguably, we're going to be measuring the wrong things. And why are we ignoring all the free stuff? Readily available, free consumer data. Why, as an industry, have we let techies and web aggregators own social media analytics when the data they produce is absolute crap? They count words. Marketing managers perceive social media as being a venting ground. The reason being, because when people say negative stuff, they say more words. However, it's still only one person. And, you know, this is our ground. We understand consumer behaviour. We interpret unstructured data. Qualitative researchers have been doing it for years. So we need to reclaim it. So we can't keep leaving unstructured, big consumer data to the domain of technology organisations who don't understand consumer behaviour. So just a little bit about MDI. Our mobile offer is underpinned by a chat platform. It's a multifunctional platform that basically works application-based on feature phones, BlackBerry, every operating system. So what we can do is survey research, longitudinal diaries, qualitative chat, qualitative engagement via chat, get consumers to answer questions via chat, group discussions or group interaction via chat, image capture within surveys, image capture within diaries, image capture within chat, etc., on 98% of the mobile devices in the marketplace. The fact that it's chat-based, I think, is one of our key USPs. Because as we know, chat is the most common way now that people are communicating with their group of acquaintances, both business and personal, via mobile devices. We're engaging people on their terms. When they talk to MDI, it's a natural discussion. Not many research companies can claim that. The quantitative aspect of our tool is in the moment. We offer the complete suite of different types of quantitative tools within the mobile space. We are a bit anal. We refuse to run questionnaires over 7 minutes. However, if a client has a lot of questions to ask, we'll just run those questions in a series of questionnaires and join them up. From a qualitative perspective, we can do one-on-one chats, we can do group and also gamification, mobile F-no. Within our platform is a passive meter. So within the same platform, same data stream, big implications that in terms of how you join it all together. So we can observe how people are using their phones. We are not trying to code and structure the entire mobile ecosystem, because in my view that's impossible, because thousands of new apps are launched every day. What we're looking for are key in the moment activities where the mobile world interacts with the digital world and it's important to our clients. So what people are doing at point of sale, what people are doing on their mobile when they're in our clients' premises, what people are doing at certain times. So coding little chunks of data that are going to provide the most valuable information to our clients. The other thing is that in putting all this together, we haven't adapted traditional market research software. So we're not constrained by projects in terms of how we look at the data. Our data comes out of the phone like the data flowing through to the networks in a stream. We artificially put the projects around that. So we can seamlessly join up an individual's data over time and look at it and change it and analyse it for different purposes, which is particularly pertinent when we're engaging people on chat. We've got a lot of open-ended data which we can then throw into a melting pot and using our text analytics tool, analyse for different reasons. One of our biggest clients is a QSR company, and what we're able to do with them is we measure competitive fast food consumption in South Africa. At an individual level, we can then overlay our clients' marketing activity, product activity, through the year, and also the competitors, and provide very easily an ROI impact on what they've done, what worked, what didn't work. Just by stringing together an individual's data and then aggregating it up to a segment level and an overall level. It doesn't sound that hard, does it? But unfortunately, the way some of our software in the industry is being built, it's very hard for most agencies to do that. And we are also looking at geofencing, and we'll have that in the platform in the next month or so. So the impact of this is, I think, shown by these two slides. I don't know if many people here have spent time in South Africa, but South Africa is an amazing country. In some ways, it's one of the most developed countries in the world, particularly in our industry. A lot of the thought leadership in our industry comes out of South Africa. In other ways, it's one of the most developing and emerging markets in the world. And what happens in that country is people like us are making decisions about how brands go to market, targeting people living at the very bottom of the pyramid, some of the poorest people in the world. And they, up until we started using our platform, had literally no idea how their target market was interacting with their brands. But through photos like this, captured on the platform of people consuming, so these are survey responses to our diary, consuming the product, they started to understand the impact that our client's product has on people's lives. That had an immediate impact in terms of the way that they started engaging with their target market and a switch in their strategies. You can't do that without the unique advantages of mobile, i.e. being able to capture images within a survey seamlessly. The other tool we've got is a text analytics tool, which is amazing. What you got here is a clump of Facebook data and the text analytics that Sysomos and Radian 6 uses on the left and what they got out of that data, and on the right, what we got out of that data. Because the way we look at text analytics is we make sure there's a human interface. Machines cannot do everything. Machines can automate processes once they're set up, and they can learn if there's an inference engine involved, but there has to be a human element in guiding the machine and checking on it. The beauty of our tool is it has context. So, for example, if you use the text analytics that a web aggregator used and you asked it to go to look for music, it would pick up every mention of music. Ours would pick up conductor, guitar, concert, festival, xylophone. It looks at the associations around words. From that, we can actually then use it to do what manual coders have been doing and actually start deriving insights from unstructured huge data sets. So we had a bit of a play, and we asked our communities in South Africa and Australia one question. How do you feel when you lost or severely damaged your phone? The cost of putting this question out and getting about 500 responses, 250 in each market, was about $500, okay? The incentive to basically get them to respond. What we then did is analysed it qualitatively. And from this, you can start to see some of the differences between the two markets. In South Africa, the emerging market, the mobile phone's much closer. It's an emotional thing. It's critical, it's life and death. In Australia, a bit more of a convenience thing. It's important, but it's not life and death. You can also see the difference between feature phone responses and smartphone responses in terms of the way the text has been written down. Much more abbreviation, no punctuation in the feature phone responses. Smartphone responses make a little bit more sense. I hate word clouds, but they serve a point in this presentation. You can see qualitatively the differences in terms of the role the mobile plays in people's lives. What we then did, though, is we took our coded data and ran it by our demographic information on the community. So we linked each of the individuals who responded to the chat, establishment questionnaire, and other demographic data to the chat question. So all of a sudden, our $500 has turned into a quantitative survey. And what we then started to see is how different people reacted to different things. And this is the point I was making earlier on males and females. What we saw in South Africa is the males were as emotional about this as the females. That would never happen in a face-to-face survey because there's a dynamic going on between the interviewer and the respondent. Arguably, it wouldn't happen in a qualitative environment because there's a dynamic going on between the different people in the group. But mobile bears all. We then also started to see differences between metro and non-metro in South Africa. And it becomes even more critical to people when they move outside of the main urban areas. In Australia, we were able to look at it by different household structures. And then just to be clever, we ran our uncoded, unstructured data through our text analytics tool and actually came up with the same result. So our text analytics tool was as effective at coding the data as our human coders. That is really critical because a big tracker, running monthly in terms of coding open-enders often is hundreds of thousands of dollars. We took CRM data from one of the major retailers in Australia, which was being coded in India on a weekly basis at the cost of about $36,000. Now code that on a daily basis for $6,000. And we're making 30% margin on it. That is groundbreaking in terms of how we can very quickly structure unstructured data and turn stuff around. So the reason I've taken you through that is it shows the flexibility of our tool and how you can adapt research to make a better product by thinking laterally. Using chat, which is an everyday tool that people use, in combination with quantitative surveys to turn one question into arguably a strategic piece of research. And the other thing is, when we stuff up, which we often do when we design a survey and we forget to ask a question, or from the findings we say, gee, I wished we could ask that, what we can do is just throw it out on chat to the same people and close it into the data set, and often the client doesn't even know that we've thrown a couple of extra things in because we've seen insights coming through that we wanted to validate. Whereas in the old world, to do that, you'd have to run another study at a huge expense.
That's all right, I'm the client, so I get the Madonna headset. Now look, James may be right, mobile may take over all the research, but from my perspective as a client, right, we're looking for an addition, because there's things we can do through the traditional methods, there's the newer methods coming on, and if they do take over, we've already got one foot in that camp. But as the lady from KPMG made to earn a bottle of champagne, change is hard. So this slide here represents a solution, but as a client, we really start with the problem. And the problem for us was that Australia is a very urbanised society, and we do a lot of research right up and down the east coast of Australia. But we had a specific advertising campaign that we were going to run into a rural area, and a rural area that we don't do a lot of research. There's very little coverage in the panels around Australia in that space. And James knocked on the door at the right time, back just before late last year. It was quite like that. I shared this problem with him. How are we going to get out to a small rural community and discuss a sensitive topic while we run a brand campaign or an advertising campaign, and we want to see the impact of the results? And the solution that we decided on was a small panel through the mobile platform, or the app, as I still think it's an app, and we ran a longitudinal study. So the critical aspects of this is we had to have, we were in the rural town for 8 weeks. We wanted contextual information. The topic we were talking about was a very heated topic. And what happens is that right across the business, because we're all involved in energy every day, is we all think, we're trying to work out what is the community's idea of what's going on, or what's their reaction to this topic, but we don't want to ask them directly, because if we do, then we're going to get a pretty heated response. And so therefore, we just looked at all of the context, what's going on in the town. And then we wanted multiple levels of measurement, and we wanted to expose people to the collateral. Firstly, we wanted to see if they came across it across the 8-week period that we decided to do this on. And if they hadn't, later to the end, we would expose them to that material and see what the reaction would be. And so we used the MDI community platform. Where did you go? Oh, gone twice. Was that the right one? Yep. Okay. And again, there's word cloud here. What we ask people about, well, what do they care about their town, and what's the contextual stuff? And from behavioural economics, we know that it's all about the context is so important. If there's one lesson, you need to be there. And this app allowed us to be there in people's mindsets. Can I have that just so I feel in control? Freaking me out a bit.
Clients.
Okay, and we got them to do an engagement task, and we got all of this verbatim response. Now, as we know yesterday, if we do this through an online study, we saw people yesterday with the KX, people have had enough, and they just don't have the energy to really take the time to type out exactly what we're feeling. But because we were giving them a 1, maybe 2 questions a day or every second day, and we were getting quite useful information. But of course, we may have got that from an online study. What we wouldn't have got...
Sorry, this stuff was coming through the chat side, and then we were asking surveys around the brand metrics at the same time.
Yes, that's right. We wouldn't have got this from a normal online study where people could just flip up, take a photo, and then explain to us what they mean. So we asked them if they could change something about their town, what would it be? And it was roads, and it was road intersections, and it was playgrounds, and it was kids getting adults to buy smokes for them. Now, we couldn't get involved in that last issue, but in these earlier issues about roads, it told us what we needed to do if we wanted to engage with this community. They weren't talking to us about the activities that were going on in AGL, in that space. They were talking to us about what mattered to them, which was their community. So I think in the first week we saw this, and in the first week we thought, we've got to stop talking about what we're doing and and get involved in that community, and we will be able to get the people on side, which was the basis of all of the campaign in the end. And then as we were going along through the 8-week period, we asked them about what topics did they see or hear about. And you can see here that the impact of carbon is quite low, but the quality of local roads, the NBN, local sporting teams were things that people talked about often. And interesting that every single one of these was over-reported in the first week. Normally, if we'd go in and did a study, we'd ask at one single point in time and we would get one feed. We were able to look at this and see how, as the campaign ran in the background, without asking directly about the campaign, how it was being fed. And at the same time that we were getting these results, we had the media planning company telling us the tarps, etc., and that this was getting into everybody's mindset, the campaign, but we could clearly see that it wasn't.
Yep. The interesting thing here, though, is that first week, almost the metrics in terms of recall of messages was double the subsequent weeks. Because even though we were asking them to record from a week, they were recording way back. Now that's a fault with any point-in-time advertising tracking methodology. And what we see here is a really strong argument for a longitudinal approach to measuring advertising effectiveness as opposed to point-in-time, ask a different person every month type approach.
Agree. And so the impact of AGL was we were able to complete this study over an 8-week period, and it was better. It was better because we were in the moment. It was better because we were getting richer data, we were getting the pictures, we were getting the understanding. We were able to change the campaign that we were running and look at the impact upon that campaign. It was cheaper. It was cheaper, much cheaper than a traditional qualitative approach, but also it was cheaper in that we were able to change that program and make our decisions on what we're going to ask next week based on what we learned this week. And it was faster. We had reports coming out every week and a final report at the end of the study. So we were getting results back from this study within 2 days of being in field.
So if you think of traditional research, and particularly in the custom space, it's linear and it's static. You do your qual, you use that to do your quant, put in some secondary data, but once you've done your quant, you're pretty well there. That's all the information you're going to get unless you go and do another study. Mobile enables us, if we've got the right tool structured in the right way, to be a lot more flexible. And in doing so, get a lot bigger bang for your research buck. You can adapt the research program as the study goes, and each element informs the other in an iterative fashion. And the way we're able to use chat in combination with surveys and then link that data together is absolutely differentiating in terms of the power we have in making sure we deliver insights and tactical recommendations for our clients. So, mobile, MDI, we're all about short, sharp research, but our vision is a holistic research ecosystem at a fraction of the cost. So using our big data, text analytics, looking at internal big data, social media analytics, we'll have an early warning system that picks up issues for our client in real time. We'll then be able to throw it out in an open question to a large number of customers and work out whether it is an issue or not. If it is an issue, very quickly we'll be able to put out a short survey to quantify that issue and come up with tactics and strategies to address it. All this happens within a 24-hour period. This is using elements that are there, but to a certain extent, our industry has ignored and let other people take control of and not do in a good way. Thank you.